special report from ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
There's breaking news tonight. Charges filed in the murder of retired Chicago police officer Larry Newman.
The 73-year-old was shot and killed outside his West Garfield Park home last Thursday. A news conference getting underway right now at police headquarters. Let's take a listen.
Chief of Detectives Antoinette City, members of the Area 4 Detective Division, Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox, Deputy Mayor of Community Safety Gary Gatewood, and 28th Ward Alderman Jason Irvin. We're here today to announce first-degree murder charges against a 16-year-old male offender in the murder of a 73-year-old man, Larry Newman. Larry Newman was a U.S. Marine veteran and retired CPD explosives technician. He retired as the longest-serving explosives technician with the Chicago Police Department Bomb Squad. He dedicated his entire professional life to protecting others. As he moved into retirement, he continued to serve his community. He was a pastor who was outspoken about the violence in our neighborhoods. He worked with young people to create a safe environment for them. Last Thursday, Larry was tragically murdered outside his home by two offenders, including the 16-year-old charged today. We're still searching for the second offender. Yesterday, I joined members of the community at a vigil for Larry Newman. It was a great showing of people from the community, from the West Side, and that large number of people who showed up actually showed who Larry was. He was a hero in that community. He was loved by that community. He knew everyone in the community. He still lived within that community when he didn't have to, but it showed how much he cared about the people who live in that neighborhood. And when I say the people who live in the neighborhood, there are some great people living in that community who knew Larry and had nothing but great things to say about him. He was a great officer. He was a Marine, and he served with honor. The heartbreaking thing was when Reverend Paul Sims of St. Michael's Missionary Baptist Church made a statement. Larry was a part of that church for over 30 years. And what he said was that Larry would have done whatever he could to reach out to those two young men who were responsible for his murder. For decades, Larry worked to bring peace to his neighborhood, to show our young people that there is a better way. In a brazen and senseless act of violence, Larry's life was taken from him by the very people he committed his life to helping. Let me start by thanking the Chicago Police Department, the members of our Chicago Police Department, our officers with boots on the ground out there, gathering information, and our Area 4 Detective Division, who have been working. They've been working all night, every night since this happened. And I'm sure they could use some sleep, and well-deserved sleep right now. But just like with other cases, and all the cases across the city, Chicago Police Department, our detective division, takes that seriously. When we look at the loss of life, we know that people are suffering, and what we want to do is bring justice to people. In order for that to happen, we have to hold individuals accountable. And what you see up here today is accountability. Our detectives worked diligently to get these charges approved. So I can't say enough about the work that they've been doing and that they're continuing to do. I also want to thank State's Attorney Kim Fox and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office for coordinating and securing charges against the 16-year-old offender here. I asked everyone in our city to keep Larry Newman's family and their thoughts as they prepare to lay him to rest this week. This is tough on everybody. It's tough on CPD when we look at someone who retired from this department. You know, he was a person to be proud of. And to tragically lose your life at the age of 73 after retiring from a job where you gave so much every single day as a member of the bomb squad. You never know when your life is going to end. He's been putting his life on the line since he was a child when he joined the Marine Corps. This is it's a tough day, but we're reporting that we're bringing some type of justice to the family. It won't bring Larry back, but hopefully, we can stop another family from going through something like this. So we will carry on Larry's mission. We will continue to honor Larry and other members of any community who has stepped up and tried to do whatever they could to better those communities. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief of Detectives, Antoinette Ursitti. She's going to give you an update on how the investigation unfolded.
Good evening. I want to extend my condolences to the Newman family as they grapple with this profound loss. For the past 4 days, the Area 4 Homicide Team and members of the Area 4 Technology Center investigating this case have canvassed for information and evidence while combing through hours of video evidence in hopes of bringing accountability and justice in this case. Detectives learned that Larry Newman was outside his residence paying a worker who was cutting his grass when he saw the two offenders approach with guns. Seeing that these two individuals were armed, Newman heroically pushed the worker out of harm's way. Newman then retrieved his firearm from his waistband. The two offenders began firing, striking Newman. Newman was able to fire at the offenders, who fled from scene on foot. On Saturday, detectives released a community alert and a video narrative with images of the suspects wanted in this case. This community alert generated multiple anonymous tips, which provided detectives with the identity of the 16-year-old charged today. A member of the Area 4 Priority Response Team also recognized the offender from a previous encounter in May in which he was wearing the same clothes. Yesterday, with assistance from members of the community, this 16-year-old offender turned himself in to Area 4 and was positively identified as one of the individuals involved in the murder of Larry Newman. The citywide robbery task force also assisted in this investigation. This juvenile offender has been charged with felony first-degree murder. The detectives involved in this case worked quickly but thoroughly to build this case and trace the movements of the offenders before and after the shooting. The community assistance in this case was instrumental in the investigation. The evidence they provided helped detectives quickly secure charges against this 16-year-old offender. I also want to thank all of our partners, including the ATF and FBI Chicago field officers and the Chicago Police Memorial Foundation and Crime Stoppers, who offered rewards for information in this case. While we have this offender in custody, we are still searching for the second individual involved. We ask that anyone with information to please come forward and submit an anonymous tip at cpdtip.com. With your help, we can hold accountable both individuals responsible for Larry Newman's murder and bring a small measure of closure to the Newman family. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Cook County State's Attorney, Kim Fox.
Good evening. Today, once again, we gather with heavy hearts to announce first-degree murder charges in the tragic murder of retired Chicago police officer Larry Newman. This Marine veteran dedicated nearly 30 years to protecting Chicago's communities. And even after retiring, he continued to give back to the city that he loved, training agents at O'Hare and Midway to detect explosives and other potential threats. He never stopped protecting the people of this fine city. On what should have been a wonderful summer day, Larry Newman was senselessly gunned down while mowing his lawn. This act of violence not only took a beloved husband, father, and friend from his family, but it also robbed our community of a man who epitomized public service and dedication. I too want to express my heartfelt condolences to Mr. Newman's family and all the lives that were touched by him. We should be able to live our lives without fear, or the fear of violence in our homes, on our block. Our home should be a sanctuary of peace, not a scene of tragic and unimaginable loss. What's equally sad is that the suspect in this heinous crime is once again a juvenile, as was the suspect in the recent tragic case of the 7-year-old Jamani Amir, whose murder charges were announced just this past Friday. What is horrifying is that as we bookend our weeks with press conferences like this, that last week it was a child, today it's an elder, and the common thread is other children taking their lives. Summertime Chicago brings incredible weather, festivals, and fun activities, but this season has continued to plague us with violent crime. As the summer continues and beyond, we remain committed to working closely with our partners at the Chicago Police Department for a Chicago that is safe for everyone and that no family has to endure the pain of losing a loved one to senseless violence. I want to once again thank our partners in the Chicago Police Department, the Area 4 detectives, the federal partners who assisted, and to the men and women of the Cook County State's Attorney's Office Felony Review Unit, who also worked alongside these detectives tirelessly to bring us to this moment, another tragic moment. With that, I turn it over to 28th Ward Alderman Jason Irvin.
Thank you, State's Attorney Fox, and thank you to the homicide team in Area 4 for their smart and hard work on this case. I would also like to thank the residents of the West Garfield Park community for their assistance in giving tips that led to the charges that State's Attorney Fox announced today. Believe it or not, I even received calls all the way from California from residents that used to live in West Garfield Park about information on this particular case. And again, thanks to the community that he loved and the community that loved him for making this happen. And again, this speaks to the love that the West Garfield Park residents has for Officer Newman and the love that Officer Newman had for the West Garfield Park community. So again, thanks to the members of the Chicago Police Department for their work on this case, and State's Attorney Fox and her team for bringing these charges today. Now, while we cannot bring Reverend Newman back, we can start the process of accountability for those involved in taking his life. Thank you.
Shortly before I take questions, I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to put him on the spot. Deputy Mayor of Community Safety, Gary Gatewood. I'd like for him to come up and just say a couple of words. He's been very supportive and a supportive arm coming out of the mayor's office with this type of work.
Good evening, all. This is a tragic moment. Someone who dedicated their life to this city, protecting this city, lost his life tragically. I cannot commend the work of CPD and the partners here enough for bringing some closure and hopefully solace to this family. We'll continue to wrap our arms around them. We'll continue to wrap our arms around the West Garfield Park community. And we will make sure that we can do everything in our power on behalf of the mayor's office to make sure these folks are held accountable. And with that, I'll give it back over to the superintendent.
Thank you. With that, we'll take any questions that you have.
Please introduce yourselves, please. Start here to left to right.
Hi, Casey Cronus with Fox 32. It was mentioned that the 16-year-old was involved in an encounter in May. Can you provide more details about that encounter? Was he arrested for that or charged with anything in that incident?
What I want to remind everyone about tonight is that he's being charged as an adult for the felony murder. Other offenses, given his juvenile background, we're not able to speak much further to that. Thank you.
Courtney Sisk, NBC5 News. You had sent out a bulletin with 2 suspects on it. Can you clarify at this point which one you are still looking for? Was it suspect 1 or suspect 2?
I'd have to have that alert in front of me. I'm not able to clarify that for you.
Okay.
Okay. Carolyn Gibzanski, Chicago Tribune. State's Attorney Fox mentioned that these weeks are bookended by children taking other people's lives, and I'm wondering what you guys feel can be done to reach these young people who continue to find themselves in these terrible situations.
Well, there are several things, right? If we think about parental guidance, why do we have parental guidance? Accountability. And there has to be an accountability factor. And it has to be an accountability factor no matter how young the child is. I think oftentimes what we do is that when we know that we have children who are engaging in small things, those things eventually grow into larger things. And if they go unchecked, those things become greater. So if we have a child that's engaging in robberies, armed robberies, today's armed robber who's 13, 14 years old is tomorrow's murderer at the age of 15 or 16 years old. So there has to be some early intervention when we see young people engaging in violent acts and behavior that they should not be engaging in. If we don't intervene now, we will be announcing felony murder charges for a 16-year-old. So that accountability factor is extremely important. And then we have to get everybody involved. It can't just be the police, right? When the police comes in contact with a young person, we can divert them. We can put them in diversion programs, but we need everybody involved. We need the community involved. We need parents involved. And we need to get a better message to our young people that this type of behavior is not only unacceptable, but it's deplorable. We have teenagers taking lives and then taking the lives of each other. So we're seeing this trend and something has to be done to stop it.
Mariano Giles with Univision Chicago. Just a clarification. The second suspect, have you identified him or her? Do we know their age?
The investigation is still ongoing.
Trey Ward, ABC7. After turning himself in, is he cooperating in the investigation? Did he show any type of remorse?
Well, I'm going to speak again, not necessarily to anything of a disclosure from the juvenile. What I really want to emphasize, and I think it's come out in a few remarks, we received an abundant amount of information from the community. This man was deeply respected, and we were provided so many tips and information that it, in a matter of days, allowed for us to obtain these charges. So I will speak to that.
Jermod Terry with CBS News Chicago. The first-degree murder charge obviously indicates that there was intent from these charges. Are you able to elaborate on why the first-degree murder charge, what encountered either hours before, days before, that allowed for you to say that there was intent there waiting? Can someone clarify, please?
Sure. Please, thank you.
Without getting fact specific, when we look at a charging decision, we look at the moment also of the incident itself. And so establishing intent, speaking hypothetically, because this case will be in branch court or branch 66 tomorrow. You will, at 11:30, you all will be able to hear a full proffer. A proffer will be read in camera for all of your benefit. But our analysis is in the moment. Was this a deliberate, intentional act? With the full knowledge that that act could cause death. And based on the evidence that was presented in this case, we believe that that act that was committed at that day, at that time, was done with the knowledge that it would cause death.
And did Mr. Newman have any connection with any of these teenagers, the two involved, prior to the shots being fired or shots being fired?
Again, for the benefit of clarity, tomorrow there will be a full proffer with the recitation of the facts that led us to this charging decision.
Last question, Braun.
I think most of the questions were actually answered, but I just wanted to clarify. I think Antoinette had said about a lot of different tips come in from the community, but we had heard that the mother of this teenager had played a role in bringing him in and making sure that he turned himself in. Can you kind of speak to that? And then also for the superintendent, you mentioned that Larry Newman had pushed somebody out of the way. Can you kind of speak to what that act of bravery in his last moments as well, please? Thank you.
Sure. What I will say from the remarks is, again, the coordination, we had a community member who coordinated. I'm not going to be able to speak any further to the role of the family in this, but I can confirm that we did have a member from the community who accompanied our offender today into the area.
Since he's trained as an adult, should we delay?
At this point, no.
Tomorrow. Any information about the weapons, where they came from, or out of state, in state, anything about that?
No, and again, we're not going to get that deep into it. So everything will come out tomorrow. All right. And just to clarify for your question, that information was provided by Chief or City, but I am aware that that Larry Newman did what he's always done, acted heroically, put his own life on the line to try to save the life of someone else, seeing weapons being displayed and having a belief that this individual's life was in danger, pushed this person to safety and put his own life on the line. Even at 73 years old, he more than likely didn't know any other way to do something like that, because that's who he was as a human being. Right now, until all of the facts come out, those are questions that we're not going to address today. So when, like the state's attorney says, there'll be a full proffer tomorrow.
The second suspect is a teenager as well?
We don't know.
I have
screenshots of the surveillance. Can I show it to you and you can confirm which one?
Well, we'll look at it after. Okay. We'll talk about that later.
You can direct any further questions to us.
Absolutely. We have programs in place for our officers who are dealing with this. Yes, absolutely. All right. Thank you.
I got charged with this 3 years.
Okay, Chicago Police wrapping up a news conference. Charges have been filed in the murder of retired Chicago police officer, 73-year-old Larry Newman.
He was outside. Some information we're getting that he was outside working on his lawn with someone who was helping him work on the lawn maintenance, and he apparently pushed them out of the way. Gunshots were exchanged between the suspects and Larry Newman. They said he was able to get one shot off, and they shot him and then ran off. One thing that really is important to point out is that they had extraordinary help that was instrumental from the community, because he was a well-respected man. He had been with his church for 30 years. He had been with the Chicago Police Department almost 30 years in the bomb squad as a technician. He was a Marine. He had served his country since he was a teenager. So much respect for him, and so many leads that led them to this one person. And they're still looking for a second suspect, 16 years old, first-degree murder.
And charged in as adult for the murder charge.
Mm-hmm.
We've done too many of these type of news conferences, but both you and I picked up right away on that comment. The cooperation from the community is something both community leaders and Chicago police have asked for in a lot of these senseless gun violence shootings. So that was a significant note that investigators wanted to make a point of saying.
And they also said that they had involved him with an incident back in May, but would not elaborate, but they were familiar with the 16-year-old.
And Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox saying much more will come out tomorrow. You can get updates anytime, wherever you stream us, but we're going to be here after the Stanley Cup final with the latest as well.
In the meantime, we thank you for joining us on this very busy Monday night of news, and we'll see you after the Stanley Cup final.
This has